Welcome to our second homecoming weekend. What is happening outside we call showers of blessings, so we need it. Please don't begrudge us some rain. I don't know how much we'll get this weekend, but some is coming. Last year when we had our weekend and people discovered we were having church in Drayson Center, one of the complaints we got was that we don't get to hear chemo on the organ. So we put chemo on the organ as the center this evening to start with an organ concert, and then we'll move into our program after that. So thank you all for being here. It's a privilege to have you all be part of this homecoming weekend. I think you'll find the program fascinating as we start telling some stories and some unsung heroes. So we've invited Dr. Carter to pray for us as we start.
Would you please stand with me for the opening prayer? Father God, Almighty Father, our Creator, our Redeemer, our Restorer, it feels good to come home, to come back to the birthplace for many of us for health careers. And we look forward to a homecoming in heaven. You have asked us to come boldly before your throne, not because the graduates of this institution have healed countless individuals, have brought hope and happiness to millions across the globe. While those are all true statements, that's not why we're asked to come boldly before you. We're asked because we stand covered in the righteousness of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. And when we think of that, all that we've accomplished vanishes away in humility, or a gift undeserved. We thank you for the Sabbath. We thank you that we've come together as colleagues and as friends and as family. And we ask continued blessings to be on each individual who is serving near and far. And we look forward to a soon homecoming with you in heaven. Amen. Please be seated.
Chemo, welcome.
It's been my privilege to be a part of homecoming weekend for many years here at the University Church, and I'm particularly pleased to be able to be here this evening to share my music with you. I've selected 6 pieces to share with you this evening, 2 from the favorite organ classical repertoire, a couple of hymn arrangements, and then just a couple more thrown in for good measure. The program will proceed unannounced. I hope you will be blessed by the music and that this will provide a worshipful start to your Sabbath.
In 1952, I could have been dead and gone. But I'm still here at the age of 62. I'm still here. When I think about this, I always struck with one thought. That is, be thankful, be grateful that my life was spared for the purpose. My name is Yoshinobu Namihira. I'm a general internist and gastroenterologist. I was born in Yonaguni Island, Okinawa, Japan. And in 1952, I was struck by polio. Even today, I have aftermath.
It's obvious that Yoshinobu Namihira is no ordinary doctor. His battle with polio as a child may have left him permanently disabled, but his story is proof that even life's most devastating events can have unexpected and beautiful outcomes.
At the age of 13, I was sent to Okinawa Hospital for Handicapped Children. When I was in Yonaguni Island, in a small island, I thought I was the worst. But when I get to the hospital and then look around that day one, when I saw the children of various disabilities, I wept. I wept. I went to my room and I wept. That very night, I made a decision. I want to become a doctor and serve people.
With a newfound mission to help others, and knowing the lifelong physical limitations he would face, Yoshinobu set his focus on studying for the college entrance exam.
It's very competitive. It's unlike the United States. Not everybody can go to the college. You have to go through the entrance examination, and I failed. When I failed the entrance examination, it was a big blow. Intellectually, I was very depressed. I was very disappointed. I almost thought I was going to commit suicide. But this is when it's very interesting. I remembered my mother. I remembered my mother. My father left the Yonaguni Island, never came back. Never came back. Basically, our family was deserted. So now we have a single parent raising one girl, two boys, and the youngest one was me with the polio. It was one of the difficult moments for my family.
Faced with raising 3 children on her own with no financial means, Yoshinobu's mother had also considered suicide. But instead, she had found the courage to leave her children with her parents, travel to Okinawa to study nursing, and return with the skills to serve others and support her family.
As a young boy, it was very easy to say, well, what is the easy exit? Commit suicide. But I thought, no, it's not fair, because my mother worked so hard, and said, no, I cannot do it, and disgrace my mother. So I wait 1 year and study hard from 5 o'clock in the morning all the way to 12 o'clock at midnight. No sightseeing. Study. And as a result of the hard working and the diligent study, after 1 year, I was admitted to the University of Ryukyu's successfully. So that was very good days.
2 years later, Yoshinobu was accepted as a foreign exchange student to Ambassador College in Pasadena, California. A year after that, he went to La Sierra University, and then on to Loma University to pursue his childhood dream of studying medicine.
In Loma Linda, it's very competitive. All my classmates are very smart, but I was not the top of the class. So I was really struggling to pass the examination, go through. But when I went to a religion class, Dr. Graham Maxwell was teaching, and I was very impressed. One thing he taught me, and then I still remember even today, he said, if you become physician, become very good one. Don't become bad one. Become a very competent physician. at the same time get to know the patient and then take care of the spiritual aspect. And that concept still stay with me in my bones and under my skin. Oh, Father, which is in heaven, both of them are suffering from a different ailment. Give them a time that he can be healed, restored completely. Most importantly, we can. I know I have a handicap, and I cannot do what everybody can do, and I admit I have no issue. But to me, anything that I can do, I want to do. So what I do is I look at the situation and say, yes, life has many difficulties and struggle. I understand. But instead of looking at the negative aspect and say, oh, okay, and say, look beyond. There is something more than that. In Japanese saying, it says, Nanakorobi yaoki. What it means, you 7 times fall, boom, 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 7 times fall. But 8th time, you rise up. And I said, that's very interesting. It's very encouraging. What it teaches you, the spirit of perseverance. Endure in spite of difficulty. Failure is a failure when you quit. But the failure is not the failure when you get up one more time. Nanakorobi yaoki. 7 falls, 8 times you rise again.
Welcome back to Loma Linda.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be back.
This is Yoshi and Miko, as you saw in the story, and what an incredible story. So we want to start back at the beginning, Yoshi, and tell us just a little bit about, you grew up on an island, off of Okinawa. Tell us about that early
I was
years.
born in Yonaguni Island, which is a very small island, very close to Taiwan. And there was no hospital. And in the small island, I was struck by the poliomyelitis. And then I thought I was dead. My mother thought I would never make it. But my mother massaged my body, entire body, thinking that someday this boy will get up and walk. And by mother's love, I was able to make it, and today I'm here. Whenever I think about this instance of polio as a child, I always think about it. In 1952, I should be dead and gone, but I'm still alive and kicking. There must be a reason, purpose for my life.
You know, as I've read through your book, and Yoshi's written a book, The Doctor on Crutches. As I've read through that, Yoshi, your mother got discouraged and depressed when you were small and wasn't sure she should carry on.
Yes, my father left our family, never returned. Basically, our family was deserted, so she had one daughter and 2 boys, and then she had no means to support. She almost committed a suicide by drowning the whole family into the ocean. But while she was looking at the eyes of the children who know what she was thinking, she said, no, it's not fair. So she turned around, instead of committing a suicide, drowning the entire family, she asked her mother to take care of all 3 children on her behalf. And she went to the mainland Okinawa, Japan, and got a nursing degree, came back and raised all 3 of us.
Amazing. How long was she gone from the children at that time?
About 2 years.
About 2 years, and your grandparents raised you on this island,
yes.
And then she came back home and became a nurse.
Yes. And she became public health nurse for the entire island of Okinawa, and she worked day and night for the benefit of the people in the island, and I saw my mother from behind working for the benefit of people without expecting anything in return.
Amazing. Do you remember a time before you had polio at all, or were you too young?
I was too young. Yes.
So all your life you've known about polio?
Yes. I was born in 1952, and I was struck by polio in 1952, so I have no other memory without handicap.
And one of your goals of your mother was to immunize the island against polio.
Yes. Because I became the victim of the polio, she became very passionate of taking care of the children so that from this point forward, there is no polio patient in the island. And she was very passionate. She put her soul and mind and also resource into her work.
Did you tell us about some of your struggles in the early years? Going to school, you must have had difficulty moving about and so on. And
Yes, I did. Well, in Yonaguni Island, at that time, there is no special education school, so I went to regular school. Now, when you think about it, in regular school, 90% of students are good, kind, and act like a little angel. But 10% are not good, mischievous, they look like a devil, and little devils. But listen to this one. The experience going through the school, in regular school, as a child with a polio, gave me enormous opportunity to develop a spirit of endurance and perseverance. And that's why I said, Nana Koru Yaoki means you fall down 7 times, but number 8 times you rise again. And the same concept is found in the Proverbs 24. It says, a righteous man may fall 7 times, but rise again.
then you were able to start moving on to higher education. When did you start thinking about medicine?
Well, watching my mother from behind, she gave me a very important decision for me to make, and I want to be a physician. And what really changed my life was this. At the age of 13, I was taken to Okinawa Hospital for the Handicapped Children. You saw the most of the video. And the very first night, I never witnessed the children of the variety of handicaps, cerebral palsies and speech disturbance, and then working with the bowed legs like a bone arrows, and also the bedridden, and also the wheelchair-bound. I never saw this scene in my life. I thought I was the worst, but I was wrong. The very first night, I wept, and that time I made a decision. If I ever become a physician, I want to serve people who cannot help themselves.
And that's when you started thinking about medicine. This was
Yes.
during your high school years?
Yes.
Or during your high school years?
Yes.
Very good. And then you finally moved on and was able to get some advanced education. Tell us about your college years.
Well, I went to the University of LLU, but as you saw in the video, I failed. So I was very discouraged, and I was about to commit suicide. But I said, no, when you remember your mother, who worked so hard day and night, and said, no, I cannot disgrace my mother. So I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning, studied all the way until midnight, and then I passed the test 1 year later and become a college student. It was a good day for me.
Very good. How did you end up at Ambassador College?
Well, it was an exchange program. The University of Ryukyu and Ambassador College had an exchange program. So I passed the entrance exam, the exchange program. So I came to Pasadena, California. And then while I was there, I met Dr. Atsushi Higa, who is a 1972 graduate. And he inspired me and who encouraged me to go to La Sierra College and study hard and apply for the Loma Medical School.
Was your mother still living at this time?
Yes, my mother was still living, yes.
So she was following you. Was she still living on the same island?
Yes, yes.
And tell us a little bit about your brother and sister. What's happened to them?
Well, my brother is 3 years older, and his name is Yoshinori. He earned his PhD in electronic engineering from Tohoku University, and he did the very earth-breaking, the groundbreaking, pioneering work on the fiber optics. So if you look at the Google, the Namihira, Yoshinori Namihira, you will see lots of citations that he produced.
So in fiber optics, that was
Yes,
his area.
he's
And where is he now?
He's in Tokyo.
In Tokyo.
Tokyo, yes.
Working in fiber optics
Yes.
engineering. And your sister?
My sister lives in Tokyo as well.
Okay. And your mother?
Mother passed away about 7 years ago.
Okay.
Yes.
But she saw you go all the way through medicine and get your specialty and so on.
Yes, she did.
Very good. Did she visit you here in America?
Yes, she came to stay with us for about 7 months. Yeah.
And when did you meet Miko?
Well, let me tell you this. Now, it's going to be very interesting. Now, in 1974, I came, and Dr. Paul Inae, who is a 1973 graduate from Loma Linda, came to me and said, Yoshi, I want you to give a 10 minutes testimony. I said, yes, I will. So I gave my 10 minutes testimony of my conversion story at the Central Japanese American Church in Los Angeles. Now, and then after I gave that 10 minutes testimony, then I was told that there is a young lady in the audience who was very impressed, but never told me who. So I was wondering who that young lady was. And then I was, about 3 months later, and Mr. Kishara took me to the Cedar Fort camp meeting. Now here became interesting. Listen, at the lunchtime, so I picked up my lunch, and then looking for the place to sit, and then and the chair was arranged in a circle. Now, I don't know what happened, but the pen fell out of my pocket onto the ground. And then there was a young lady came and picked up this pen from the ground and gave back to me. I thanked this young lady for her kind act. Then conversation started between this young lady and myself. And I asked this very stupid question. I gave a 10 minutes testimony at the Central Japanese Church in Los Angeles recently. 2 questions. Were you there? Number 2, were you impressed? She said, yes to the 2 questions. Then I knew in my heart that this is the lady that I was looking for. And listen now, don't go to sleep now. 2 weeks later, I proposed to her, and on June 22, 1975, Miko and I got married.
Okay, Miko, now I want to hear your side.
One more thing. I want you to know that I never dropped the pen on purpose. Okay? The pen dropped out of my pocket for a reason which only God knows. But this instance of pen dropping at the Cedar Fort camp meeting was the beginning of our journey together.
Miko, tell us your side of this story now. Yes.
Okay. Yes, it was good start. When I heard his testimony, I thought he will not throw away God. And that was start. Ever since we got married, he was so busy. And so Sabbath was special for us. And we had Japanese group to worship together and potluck, and that was good. And in La Sierra, one night, my husband didn't come back from study, like 11 o'clock at night. So I went out to look for him in a grassy area behind the campus. And campus police found me with suspicion. And then my husband showed up, so everything was okay. But that was a way. He was always busy studying.
So you met while you were here in medical school?
No.
Before? When did you meet in relationship to medical education?
Pasadena.
When you were at Ambassador College still?
Yeah.
When did you become an Adventist?
In Japan.
Well, I'll tell you this. Now listen. I was very depressed when I failed the entrance examination, and I was thinking about suicide. Then now I become a college student. Now I'm very proud. Then I thought, I'm going to look for some girlfriend. So I got befriended with a music major, and I thought she's going to be my wife. But as the time went by, relationship became strained, and she left. Now I was very depressed. At that point, I was at the bottom. I was surrounded by the intellectual limitation because I failed. I was surrounded by the second spiritual limitation because I couldn't believe anybody. And number 3, I was depressed. And then I didn't know which way to go. So I was surrounded by the 3 limitations. Then Dr. Toshio Yamagata came to Okinawa, Japan, and he gave an evangelistic meeting on the subject of human limitation. That word caught my attention, and that was my beginning into the Seventh-day Adventist.
Fascinating. Tell us a little bit about your Loma Linda years. What you remember here at
let
the
me tell you.
campus.
I'm 66 years old, and then I finished my school, but I'll tell you this. My memory of Loma Linda is very rough. Medical school is tough, volume is too much, and speed is so fast, and time is limited. Every time that I went from the basic science building to the student lounge to check the mailbox to see my test score, I was trembling. Why? Because I have to know whether I passed the test or not. So it was a very shaking moment for me to go through the campus back and forth.
Who are some of the people you remember here at Loma Linda the most?
Well, the Dr. Walter Roberts was my first
Anatomy?
anatomy teacher, and the Dr. Carol Small was my pathology teacher. And then those teachers are very dear to my heart.
Very good. And why, then you went into internal medicine?
Yes.
Where did you do your residency?
I did a residency in internal medicine here.
Okay.
And then I went to University Mississippi Medical Center for gastroenterology fellowship.
And how did you end up in Vicksburg, Mississippi?
Well, let me tell you the story. All right, listen. Now I did the medical school here, and I did the internal medicine residency, and then I moved to Jackson, Mississippi, and then I finished my training in gastroenterology. That's the type. So if you have a stomach problem, that's the type of thing I do with a scope. Then when I finished my training, Dr. Johnny Evans, he's a 1964 graduate, called me and said, "Yoshi, I want you to come and help me at the Vicksburg." So I said, "Okay, I'll come for 6 months." Now 6 months became 1 year, 1 year became 10 years, and 10 years become 20, and then Miko and I are in Vicksburg in 32 years.
Amazing, amazing. And loved by the community, I must say, as I've heard reports. This man is known in the Vicksburg community, as the book says, the doctor on crutches, and that's how he's known in Vicksburg and treasured by that community. Tell us a little bit about Miko and her music.
Okay. What was really inspiring to me is this. I will tell you this. Not only the music, but she played a very important part in my life. And before she prepared the lunchbox for me, she always put a little bit piece of Ellen White quotation in the lunchbox. And I was a medical student going through. And then one day, I opened my lunchbox, and then I found this quote, and I want to share. It reads, "If you go to heaven, when you finish your appointed work on this earth, I shall not want anything. I'm determined to do whatever I can do for you for this single purpose." I never forgot this, her poem, and she played a very important role in my life in directing my eyes to heaven.
And she's going to do some music for us.
Yes, and before she does, I want to say this. I want to do what I can, and I want to continue to do what I'm good at until the time comes. And Miko and I are keep on singing Amazing Grace until then.
Thank you, and Miko will share with us now.
Amazing grace, how sweet
Miko Namahara, for some of our unsung heroes. It's a privilege to have you with us. And now I'd like to invite Marianne and Steve Wells up. Steve and Marianne are local people, living here in the local area, always living here in the local area. Did we end up with a microphone for both of you? Yes, please have a seat. Tell us about your early years, where you grew up and how you met and so on.
I'm so privileged to be here after listening to the prior testimony. It's a privilege to be here. I grew up in Montana, and when I was in junior high, I moved to Fontana. And Steve was always a Fontana boy. So we actually met, we went to junior high and high school together, and actually met the last month of our senior year in high school. And he was hanging around. I couldn't get rid of him. And I'm sure glad I didn't.
That's what they do.
Yeah, no.
And then, Steve, you went on doing a career. Tell us a little bit about your career.
Oh, gosh. Let's see. Right after high school, I went to college. I graduated, received my engineering degree in electronics at Cal Poly Pomona. Marianne helped me. She put me through school. We had one of our 3 children, our boy Jason at that time, so it was a little rough, but we made it through. Played a few years of football, then decided to buckle down with my degree. So anyway, that was part of it, and I've been blessed ever since.
And so your career was in engineering. What type of engineering?
Yeah, so electronic engineering. I've been in aerospace for 40 years. I graduated in '78. I currently work for Northrop Grumman. I'm a manager for the environmental test facilities, and we test all the defense satellites, the secret ones.
Very good. And during these years, Marianne, you stayed home, raised 3 children?
Right. As Steve said, I worked primarily in administrative type work. I worked in public relations for Kaiser Steel before, they were out of business. Then I stayed home to raise our 3 children. And that's, one of the things, I loved babies. So I had 3 babies in 3 years. I overwhelmed Steve. He thought I was headed to 12. And we both had decided that it was a good idea for me to stay home. So any kind of work that I did was primarily just part-time. I would pick up work that I could do inside of my home, but my primary responsibility was raising my 3 children.
And during that time, you pushed your kids to get education, and they moved on with their lives?
Absolutely. That was always, something that we encouraged for them to get a good education. And it probably wasn't until after I had my first child that I started looking at nursing as being something that I would really like to do. And of course, loving babies the way that I did, I thought, well, if I ever had the opportunity to become a nurse, I'd want to work either in labor and delivery or in the neonatal intensive care unit. And so probably in my 30s, when the children were all in elementary school, I started taking the prerequisites for the nursing program, and then got real busy raising 3 kids who were doing sports and all that kind of a thing. And so I kind of set it by the wayside. And then Steve has always supported me no matter what I've wanted to do. But when my daughters got to the age where they were trying to decide what did they want to do, I'd take them over to Valley and I'd say, go listen to the spiel on nursing, because I thought, well, if I can't do it, maybe I can live vicariously through them. So at any rate, my middle daughter said, no, blood's not my thing, can't do it. And my younger one, she took a CNA class and found out that was her thing, and she just, latched onto that and worked in labor and delivery here at Loma Linda while she was going to school. And she'd come home and she'd tell me all the stories, and I'd go, oh, I really, really want to do that too, And so that's pretty much how it transpired. She actually became a nurse before I did.
And so you finally decided to go back and do nursing. What year was that you started back?
That was in 2002. I was working up at Forest Home Christian Conference Center, and we had one of those days where they said, okay, y'all just go find some quiet place and seek the Lord and see, what he's got going for you. And so I did, and I was taken aback because it felt like he was just saying, it's time, go back, because I had done administrative type work, and I felt like I want to do something that I can make a difference. My kids were pretty much raised. So taking what I felt the Lord was putting on my heart, I came home and I asked Steve, I said, would you pray and consider about me quitting my job and going back and picking up with those prereqs to do nursing? And of course, he said yes, and that's when I started back.
So you went through nursing, and then was your first job up here?
Absolutely. While I was in nursing school, I, knew that I wanted to work with babies some way, shape, or form, but I was letting myself just go through all the clinical rotations and figure out where was my niche, and Lord, where did you want me? And one of the nurse recruiters from Loma Linda came out, and she gave us a speech one day. And she said, and she actually used to be a NICU nurse, and she said that it was the greatest privilege of her life to sit there and hold some of these babies that maybe weren't going to make it and pray over them and minister to their families. And I went, yep, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. I just knew that that was exactly where the Lord had called me.
So you started working in our NICU up here.
Yes.
And into that a few years? How long were you there?
Well, I started in February of 2007 with the Pediatric Residency program, and loved it. Just thought this was just the best thing ever, and why didn't I do this sooner? And it was nice because when I would come home, I would talk to Allison, my daughter, who is a nurse, because she was already working in on 4800 Pediatrics Oncology. And we could share notes, back and forth and gross everybody out at the dinner table. But at any rate, I just loved it. I would cross the street where the parking structure was and walk to the hospital and just say, pinch myself. How can I can't even believe that I get to do this.
And then one day, and if I can have the slides, you met a special baby.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I had a couple of babies that I was able to primary. When you become a primary RN in the neonatal intensive care unit, it basically means that you are assigned to that baby for the duration of their stay. You get to know that baby inside and out, and you provide a continuity of care because you're so in tune with their changes, good or bad. And so on this occasion, what I tried to do is I would primary babies that had conditions that maybe I hadn't taken care of, just so that it would increase my knowledge and my nursing skill and ability. And so one day I was assigned a baby that was born with gastroschisis, and I had never taken care of one who had that particular anomaly.
And let me have you hang on to your seats. This is the baby. Gastroschisis is when a baby is born with an open abdomen and the entire intestines are outside the abdomen, gastroschisis. And your reaction was?
Well, when I started taking care of her, it was at 2 weeks, so she'd already had her initial closure. She had been siloed, and then they had placed the intestines back into the abdomen, but she was awaiting the second surgery, which was called an anastomosis, where they, reconnect everything. And then with a gastroschisis baby, the big thing is to try and wait until they have a stool, and then you can start feeding them. And some are very simple, some are much more complicated, and Sophia's was definitely complicated.
And the months went by, you cared for her in the hospital, and
yes,
you did what we're told not to do. You started bonding with the patient.
My excuse is that other babies that I primaried, they had moms or dads that took them home and were there at the bedside and were taking care of them and practically had to push them out the door just to go get a meal and get some rest. That was not the case with Sophia, and her parent was a single mom. And, as I said earlier, one of the reasons I did this is because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to help her in what had to be the most difficult time of her life, to have a critically ill baby. and not really have a support system. Sophia was in isolation, away from the general population, for probably 5 or 6 months. And it was just her and me, because no other baby could be in there while she had a particular bacteria. And so when you don't have any other nurse to talk to or any other patient to take care of, you're kind of just like hands, eyes right on that one baby. And I really believe that the Lord gave me almost that mama instinct even when I was just a nurse, because even after she was discharged home for the first time with her parent, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I'd tell Steve, I'd say, something's wrong with Sophia. And he'd go, well, how do you know? And I said, I don't know. I just feel like something's not right. And I would come into work, and one of the child life specialists would say, hey, your girl Sophia is up on the peds unit. And I'd say, I knew it. I just knew it, you know. So there was definitely a connection there with her that, as much as I loved caring for the other babies, it was unique.
And then you started bringing her home?
Well, I actually had developed a relationship with her parent and was trying to be of support to her in the 4 months that Sophia was discharged home. She was in the NICU from the day of birth until she was 11 months old. And the joke on the NICU is always, we've got to get these kids out of here by their first birthday. You just don't want them to stay there that long. And normally they simply don't, but she did. And I was able to carry her downstairs from the 3700 and put her in her parents' car for the first time. And I'll never forget, the wind hit her face, and it was like, what? What's wind? You know, she'd never been out of a hospital. And so I kept in touch with her parent, just checking and seeing if she needed anything. And CPS became involved, and Sophia was removed and placed into a subacute medical facility.
And then?
And then, and then I would go and visit her. You know, like I said, I had a sixth sense. I knew when things were not well with her. And I would come to visit her, and I could see the light going out of her eyes. You know, she's always been precocious, even as a baby. And I would go visit her and play with her and, you know, bring things to her. And I just knew she was not going to thrive. And most children don't thrive in that environment. So I came home and I said to Steve, I said, look, I said, it's breaking my heart. I don't think she's going to make it if we don't step up and do something. So would you again pray about whether or not we volunteer to foster her? And so he did. He prayed, and we just said, you know what, Lord, if no one else is going to be able to take this baby in and you open the doors, then we're going to know that this is what you planned for us. And that, let's see, in January of 2011, I got the call. I was working on my shift at the hospital, and I got the call from the county, and they said, you can pick her up tomorrow. So...
And that started a long journey that eventually ended up in an adoption process.
Yes, yes. Initially, when Sophia came to be with us, again, I was still trying to help the birth parent, and the social work team had said, you know, given me certain advice. And my heart has always been, you know, if I'm going to teach somebody how to do something, they need to be in my home and watch me do it. Because one thing that I've learned is that as nurses, we're taking care of these babies, and we're sending them home oftentimes, most times, to parents who don't have medical skills, knowledge. They have other children. And I'm telling you, it is a hard battle to advocate for these kids, the special needs that they have, and to go to bat for them and to stay on top of the medical conditions. So, you know, I was going into it thinking, well, if I just progress her to a certain point, then mom will be able to take over, right? And when it became very obvious, it actually became obvious to Steve and to my children before it even did to me, that was not going to be in Sophia's best interest. We were faced with having to get an attorney, and we were given legal guardianship of her back in 2013. And, you know, if you could do things all over again, there's certainly things that I would do differently. But one of the quotes, I believe it's from Abraham Lincoln, that I've always kind of lived by is that if you look for the bad in people expecting to find it, you surely will. And with this parent, I wanted to give her the benefit of a doubt because I so loved being a mom. And I felt just about everybody else must too, but sometimes it's not that way. And so after legal guardianship, you know, we knew Sophia considered us her parents. And we knew that at a certain time we needed to go ahead and file for adoption. So we did that in 2014.
And ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Sophia. What day were you born on?
April 3rd, 2009.
Do you know what's special about that day?
It's your birthday.
It's my birthday as well, right?
And it's also my pastor's birthday.
And your pastor's birthday, very good. So what's your full name, Sophia?
Sophia Genesis Wells.
And who picked that name?
I picked it.
What does it mean?
It means a new beginning.
Okay. And you've come to live with Steve and Mary Ann?
Yes, I have.
How many surgeries have you had?
Well, I'd say about 9. And I might have like my 10th really soon because I'm getting my tube out March 23rd.
So you're now 8 years old, but still finally getting the last tube out soon.
Yes.
Are you in school?
Yes, I am.
Are you very bright?
Yes, I am.
You get all A's?
What?
You get all A's?
Mostly.
Oh, okay. So what's it like with your mom and dad now?
It's a really great life. We have a dog named Rocky. He's very, very friendly. And I really feel like these are very safe and friendly parents.
Steve, you've been part of this journey.
Yes, it is. It's been a wonderful journey. Like Mary Ann, and you know, we've been married 42 years, Valentine's Day. And I'll tell you, when it was time to make this decision for the adoption, and we prayed about it, but I knew in my heart it was the right thing to do immediately because everything that God puts in your life in front of you, you have to just know it's there for a reason. He has a path for you. And so I told Marianne, I says, we have to do whatever we have to do, whatever it costs. And it did cost. And I would do it over again 4 more times if I had to, because life is precious. She needed a home, she needed stability, and we were there to provide it. I would do it over again.
What an incredible story. Have you decided what you're going to do when you get big?
Well, I want to do something that includes animals because I just simply love animals. Preferably a marine biologist because I fell in love with dolphins the moment I watched Dolphin Tale 1 and 2.
So you're going to be a veterinarian for dolphins?
Actually, they're called marine biologists.
Oh, marine bio. Got it. Thank you very much. So Steve and Mary Ann Wells and Sophia.
While you're there, you figure that you only have 2 choices here. You're either going to die or you're going to somehow miraculously be released. I only realized the level of desperation that I was in after I came back. My name is Dilip Joseph. I'm a medical director at an economic and community development initiative that works in Afghanistan. Since Loma and going through Masters in Public Health, I've always had an interest to see how community health impacts people's lives. And so I was looking for an opportunity like this that just fell into my lap. Since 2009 all the way till late 2012, I made like 12 different trips in those 4 years. And they were great. I was enjoying it immensely. And so this last trip was very different. We were coming down from one of the more rural areas, making our way down the windy road down to the Kabul-Jalalabad main highway. And we saw this one gunman pop up from a bush on the side of the road. And as soon as he stopped us, there were two guys coming down from the mountain right in front of us, and one guy surrounded us from the back. So we were essentially surrounded by these guys. But yeah, as soon as that happened, I realized it was just a matter of minutes before they shoot and kill us. But then we were taken to a very remote area down the valley, away from the mountains. And then we essentially ended up spending the rest of the day just hiking up and down mountains. I think very early on, it settled on me that, wow, this is how my life was going to end. But the fact that I knew my life was going to end, I didn't want to die feeling pissed off, if you will. So in some ways, I had to work that out. And I think those were the first few hours of really wrestling with God about it. Why me? Why this way? Haven't I done enough to deserve something better? And sort of going from all the me questions to realizing, wow, I'm talking to the creator of the universe who could actually be sovereign over every little detail. And he could pick, regardless of my scenario, he could pick this scenario to make it, to glorify his name. And so kind of resting on that, I ended up having an incredible conversation with a young man. I had no idea how old he was, but as he was listening to my life story, why I do what I do, to coming out to help people who would otherwise end up dying from very easily preventable situations, health situations. He then began, an hour and a half into hearing my story, he then began shifting to his own story and telling me things like, I think you do what you do because this is what you've been exposed to. You like helping people. I do what I do because this is all I've seen all around me. By the time I was 5, I had already killed my first victim. And for the past 14 years, I haven't seen my dad. He's been in prison. And I was 5 the last time I saw him. I stopped him right there and I said, I'm old enough to be your father. And when I said, I'm old enough to be your father, that was probably only few microseconds that he sort of stopped asking questions. He was just sort of letting that digest a little bit. And also realizing that there's so much to life beyond what he's experienced. And I realized for the first moment that I don't have the type of heart that God has for people that we might easily consider as evil. And that was a very telling moment for me. On the final day, which was the 4th day, maybe a couple of hours into that, I hear some animals making noises, dog barking, sheep baaing, and I can hear some rustling going around. And the 19-year-old walks out. And still to this day, I haven't pieced together how all of that got orchestrated. What he would have seen is literally a sea of military men all kind of surrounding the area. And he would have seen that. He came back in. If he'd seen what he had seen, I'm not sure why he wouldn't have gone ahead and just killed me right away. because it would have been a desperate situation. But for whatever reason, he had a very short conversation, and then that conversation subsides, and the next thing I hear is a gunshot that eventually takes the life of the first Navy SEAL that walks into the room. And then literally all hell breaks loose. I hear multiple conversations, all shouting. Then I realize, wait a second, all these guys are talking in English. And I'm the only guy in the room who can speak English. Then I hear, within a matter of a few more seconds, I hear, is Dilip Joseph here? And I raise my voice and say, I'm right here. And again, within a matter of a few seconds, I have this one guy laying on top of me. Then I hear these muffled gunshots going all around me. I think as soon as I was sandwiched between these two SEALs and walked out of the compound, just to wait in the front yard, that's when I realized, wow, I'm rescued, I'm safe, and all I want to do at this point is just be back with my family. Not only were the 5 guys who were with me were all killed, but later I found out that all the people that came in to see what happened, they were killed in a morning raid. You know, when you work in a scenario like this, situation like this, you never want to be the cause of people dying, you know, especially when you're a medic. You're there to like save lives. That's a very hard dichotomy to sort of process in your mind. As thankful as I am for my rescue, the last thing I expected was for the Taliban to be this open. Now I realize that the desperation that they have is the same desperation that I feel when I think about hope or peace or joy or, you know, love in my own life. What truly makes man whole? And what's my role in that? If I have hope, how do I then instill that hope to others? It actually doesn't take a lot of effort to instill hope, even in a very dark place. It's the little things that actually make the big difference, and not the things that you consider of maybe doing surgery and giving a person, you know, a few more years in life. All those things do matter, but if that person who just had a surgery doesn't have a surgery of the heart, we haven't really impacted their lives in a deeper level that we could easily do if we just spend some time with people and get to understand them.
Welcome with me, Dr. Dilip Joseph, and coming up with Dr. Jake Job. Dr. Job is one of our professors here in the School of Public Health, who is your advisor. Tell us a little bit about your early life. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in 2 different parts of India, originally in Kerala, all the way south, and then also in the east of India in a state called West Bengal.
And you took medicine where?
I did medicine in England because right after public health and everything that had impacted me here, I really wanted to do more in preventive care.
So you took medicine after public health degree?
That's right.
And why in the world did you come to Loma Linda? What was your connection?
I'm still trying to figure that out. No, I had a very close friend who did high school and college here in Southern California, who went to Loma Linda and did MPH 2 years before me. And he spoke so highly of me, and the impact that it made on his life certainly geared me towards Loma Linda.
And so you applied and came here from India.
Well, I was already in California for close to 10 years. I did high school and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And so, by the time I came to Loma Linda, I had, I guess, gotten a fair share of California culture in me.
You were married by that time with your family?
No, not quite yet. Maybe it was another 4 years before I got married.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Jake, you met him, Dilip, when he first came here. Tell us what your memories were.
Be nice, Dr. Job.
I first met Dilip, thinking back, it's nearly 2 decades ago, 1998 to be exact, in the fall of 1998, when you enrolled in the MPH program here in the School of Public Health. My first impression of him as I met him was that of an easygoing, soft-spoken young man. But very soon I discovered there was a sense of humor and sparkling wit behind that quiet demeanor. He does a great imitation of some of the faculty, I must tell you. And he also had this keen intellectual curiosity, which prompted him to ask some tough questions in class, deep questions. He had this tremendous zest for life. And of course, he had this warm, outgoing, congenial personality. But more than that, I sensed deep, burning passion to minister to those in marginalized, disenfranchised communities. And I think that's probably was part of his upbringing. And I think what he did in continuing to serve in many areas of the world was from his deep-rooted Christian foundations and his life convictions, which informed his focus, his activities, his mission, then and even to this day.
Tell us about your family. Your wife was from living here in California as well?
Yeah, we met in college. So soon after that, when I came to Loma Linda, she waited a long time before we got married, and we got married in the middle of med school. Time for me, yeah.
So she went to England with you?
She came to England, and we had actually our 2 first babies in England before we came back.
How did you get involved with Afghanistan?
So when I got done, I think lots of seeds were planted in my heart, in my life, during Loma Linda years. But as Dr. Job said, I did have some passion for marginalized communities, and during med school is when Afghanistan was going through probably some of its darkest days. And although we saw and heard about stories, it never really clicked until I started praying about now how to piece together all the experiences that I've had and really use my skill set to serve people. And this opportunity for working with this NGO came about as I was doing that search.
And you basically made a number of short-term trips over there as part of this NGO, providing health care?
I did a lot of training. So, even in a place like Afghanistan, it's never a lack of resources, whether it's human or otherwise. So I got to work with a lot of doctors, nurses, midwives, community health workers, but it was mainly doing health education training, primary health care.
Have you been back after this episode?
I've tried a couple of times, but I think both from the Afghanistan side and from the U.S. side, now I'm tagged, so I haven't been granted a visa since this event.
Mm-hmm. Did this hit the public news?
It did, I think mainly because of the SEAL that died. It became big news.
Tell us what you're doing now.
So I continue to oversee all of our medical work. We run about 4 different clinics and a couple of rural community health outreach, and also run a 3-year family medicine residency program in Kabul. Those has its limitations because of either doing Skype training or doing a lot of emailing and phone conversations.
What hospital is that at in Kabul?
There's a hospital called Afghan Mercy Hospital that was actually put together by some of our own graduates from the family medicine residency program, and it's something we have restarted. It's been going on for about 12 years now, but the recent hospital that's hosting us is Afghan Mercy Hospital.
Mm-hmm. And in Colorado, you do what?
Colorado is our office. So I'm involved in, since it's a very small NGO, about 5 of us here and about 120 in Afghanistan. And because of the refugee diaspora right now, we've also started working with Afghan refugee population in Delhi, India, that I oversee, and also in Colorado Springs, where there are many Afghan refugees.
Are you doing clinical work? Are you on time?
I do a little bit only when I travel, but most of what I've done is just health training.
Mm-hmm. Is the residency, and this is kind of a personal, is Tim Fader, is this the program he
Yeah.
was involved with?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I know Tim well. We worked with him out there in Afghanistan, and he's working with, he was here in Loma Linda just about a month ago.
Oh, really?
2 months ago.
Yeah, Tim left Afghanistan in early 2011, I believe, but he's a father of family medicine in Afghanistan.
We're looking at starting a family medicine residency in Africa, and he's been involved with that strategy.
He's a man to do it.
Yeah, he is. And you have some of your family with us here. Dilip,
Yes.
introduce those. If they maybe all stand for us.
A very close undergraduate friend, Chona, my sister Deepa, and her 2 daughters, Ria and Preeti, and I have one of my sons, Ishan. He's the 4th child. I have to say that Dr. Job's global population dynamics course did not have a great impact on me. My wife and I, we have 5 children, but I got to travel with Ishan this time.
Jake, any final comments?
I'm not sure if some of you know that he co-authored the book, Kidnapped by the Taliban. And I just want to read a little excerpt. I was struck by that as I read the book, recalling his experience in Afghanistan.
Hold the mic a little closer.
As I've worked in Afghanistan and interacted with its people, I've experienced so much hope, joy, and peace. Simply taking the time to talk and listen with respect has an amazing impact. It is measured not in numbers, but in smiles, trust, and new relationships. When we invest in those who are vulnerable and disenfranchised, our lives become more fulfilling. I followed Dilip's life in his remarkable career over the years. We've kept in touch, and I have no hesitation in saying that this is one person who certainly exemplifies the highest traditions of global public health and preventive medicine, as well as he models well the core values of our university and the mission of our church. So I'm really proud that he's here with us.
Thank you, Dilip. Thank you, Jake, for being with us. Thank you all for being here. Those are some unsung heroes that we often don't know about or talk about, and there's literally hundreds of them out there that it's a privilege to call alumni from Loma Linda. Helen, close our meeting with prayer.
Bow your heads with me, please. Our dear Father, tonight we have had a chance to hear stories from unsung heroes. We are so thankful for them. We know that these heroes are not unsung to you. You have told us that when we call on you, you will answer. You will be with us in trouble, and you are mighty to save. You've assured us that you command your angels to guard us in all our ways. Thank you. You have demonstrated that you love us. You love to whisper to us through stories such as we've heard tonight, and that you love it when we listen and whisper back, even when we try to run away from our troubles or feel that we have nothing to offer. You will find us, bless us, even when we feel most alone. Unsure, you find a way to whisper to us, to let us know that you are with us in this place, wherever we are, wherever we need help. We know that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the whisper, the little voice at the end of the day that says, I'll try again tomorrow, because we have listened. As we listen for your whisper, help us to realize that all the things in this world are gifts and signs of your love to us, given in a whisper of beauty, a love letter from you that we should listen to. Bless us tonight as we have listened to your whisper in our hearts and in our minds, and as we value the unsung heroes you have placed in our midst. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, and good night.